Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a Western astrologer and twin flame channel. And this is a video about the full moon in Cancer that took place on January 13th at 5:26 p.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local time. Energy is active 1 week before and up to 1 week after. And this is a very fascinating full moon. It's right there at that 23rd degree of Cancer. And we see it making a lot of very interesting aspects. We have a conjunction to Mars that's retrograde. Mars is our motivation and ambition, and water signs can operate in a very emotionally driven way. We see a sextile to Uranus in Taurus, which is going to bring shocks, surprises, unexpected and unanticipated events. We've got a trine to Juno and Scorpio. Juno represents partnerships um, and collaborations, but specifically equal partnerships and the marriage contract. We do see a square to Lilith there in Libra, our sign of partnership. And Lilith is really insistent on having things go her way in partnership, with Chiron also in communication with this new moon, in conjunction with Eris. This combination is really having us learn from our wounds and rejectedness in the past. And then we also see a nice combination of communications from Neptune in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, Nessus in Pisces, really giving us a nice spiritual working over inside of this new moon's energy. I love the energy of this new moon because it is maturing us and laying a solid foundation for 2025. This full moon, sorry, not new moon, it is a full moon. And so if I have a Freudian slip, please forgive me. I know it's a full moon. Now you know it's a full moon. But if my mouth forgets that it's a full moon, trust that we're on the same page, even if my mouth forgets it. But this is a very fascinating full moon because it's asking us to lean into the completion of certain processes, certain habits, certain behaviors, and break ways with those things. In some cases, unexpectedly and overnight. In other cases, this may have been a process you have been contemplating a long time coming. And to start to step into making space for the fuller energy that this year is going to bring. But before we get into the total breakdown, I want to welcome everybody into a new year together. You'll be able to find all of the 2024 lunar updates if you want to track important events in your life and look at what was going on in the 2024 lunar update playlist. You'll be able to find a 2025 Lightworker Energy Update playlist in my YouTube channel. And there is a component that I like to do for all of these videos called First Look. This year, I will be moving First Look, which is our preview of the lunation coming up after this, to the All Signs video. So if you'd like to have a listen for that, be on the lookout for that All Signs videos, which will drop sometime in the next 24 hours. Readings are available this week, but the 1 hour and half-hour session on Wednesday and Friday. If the energy of this year has gotten off to a rocky, intense, or frustrating start, now is a great time to book, especially if there's been any carryover energy from 2024 into this new year of that nature. There's good reason for that, but we can find solutions for you personally in your chart. And my heart goes out to all of those impacted by the wildfires in California. Please know that I am praying for you and keeping the situation in the light for highest possible outcomes for all involved and our star family here, who are experiencing great transition and loss at this time. I am doing lives as we kick off the year with members of our star family here that have YouTube channels. I already did a Venus retrograde special with Dark Skin Tarot here on this YouTube channel. and a Juno retrograde special. She's the divine feminine energy with Lee and Sherry over on their channels. You can find links in the community section. Definitely check it out for key dates, themes, and important tips to navigate the first 6 months of 2025. It's going to be a wild year in love and money. So strap in, kiddos. We've got some fun ahead of us. Let's take a look at this full moon to kick it off. Here it is. Again, as I mentioned, it is conjunct Mars retrograde. Normally, this represents passionate and emotion-filled action, but with Mars retrograde, there may be hesitation, double thinking, or stifled action. Mars can be in shadow as Mars is retrograde. Sometimes we see more of the shadow energies of Mars. It can be impulsive, impatient, emotionally reactive, and emotion-filled action that are shadow emotions. We're talking about things like lashing out, meltdowns, rage or anger used to punish or manipulate yourself or other people. We also see some compulsion and attachment can deepen or break loose here, even given the other aspects, but it's likely it won't stay the same. So, those of you in unsafe situations because you know you have stalkers or others who routinely violate your boundaries, stay aware of your surroundings. This is an energy, especially because Mars is speaking to Uranus, which governs impulses. This can have some of those situations escalate rather quickly and unexpectedly. Coming into that sextile to Uranus, it does amplify the preceding energy and adds an element of shock, surprise, unconventionality, and the unpredictable. Really great time to use this at this time to get a project rolling, kick off a resolution, a New Year's resolution, or burn off excess energy or anxiety with physical activity. Great time to break a habit or try something new. You may, with Uranus speaking to the new full moon and Mars retrograde, have a deep sense that you're ready to do a new thing in at least one area of life, or finally tackle a leftover project from last year, or deal with something that stirred up challenging emotions in the world of family, home, or emotional connection and tackle it head on. You might even just tackle it all of a sudden, where you wake up in the morning and now you're ready to clean out the closet or garage that you have ignored for the last decade. If it comes out of nowhere, trust it. It is here to help you break through stagnant energy. We can see this full moon has a lot of placements in cardinal signs. That is one of the gifts that comes from cardinal signs, is the capacity to do a new thing. You just want to make sure you don't bite off more than you can chew, because that's the shadow side of the cardinal signs. We also see this full moon in trine to Juno here in Scorpio. This is part of a much larger process for Juno, where she's headed to that first degree mark of Sagittarius and then turning retrograde. We'll talk about this more in other lunar updates, but we are now in the Juno shadow period, where the issues and challenges that we'll face during the Juno retrograde are showing up in our lives and have been since about the last 10 days of December, December 21st to be exact. Juno is the higher octave of Venus. Venus represents the chemistry. She also represents the attraction, the magnetism. She represents the love and the money, the resources, specifically what we value. But Juno takes those things to a much higher octave. And what she does is she invites us to take those things that we may have as a feeling and turn them into the material form. Where there's chemistry, Juno turns things into the commitment. Where there's connection, Juno turns those things into contracts and bonds that are established on paper. This is the energy of Juno. She is known as the wife of the zodiac. She's also representative of partnership and collaboration in whole. Juno and Scorpio helps us navigate the scorpionic themes of transformation, alchemy, resurrection cycles, physical intimacy, control, power, and what we call other people's money, loans, inheritances, taxes, etc., in partnerships. With Juno speaking to this new moon in Cancer, the emotions tied to these themes can show up in our lives at this time in our partnerships, both business and romantic. This is part of a deeper excavation process. Like I said, we'll be talking about Juno retrograde as we go along this year, and you can certainly get a quick heads up with this live that I did with Lee and Sherry over on their channel. Link in my community section. We see a square to this full moon from, let me just clear that up. Here's full moon. We've got a square down here to Lilith in Libra. And this adds an aspect of tension between the full moon and Lilith in Libra, who's already a little bit contentious because Lilith wants to always do things her way. But in the partnership and equality sign, this is about finding win-win solutions, not just my way or the highway. So, with the square to this full moon, this can really amplify Lilith's clarity about what we need, what we want, what we're not willing to settle for in partnership, especially with emotions and emotional impulsiveness high at this time. We also see a square to Chiron conjunct Eris up there in Aries. This constitutes a little bit of a cardinal grand cross here because we see the sun, which illuminates our full moon across from the full moon there. But Chiron and Eris in this energy add to Lilith's aspect and influence and heightens our sensitivity to past emotional wounds, especially with regard to rejection, abandonment, being left out, singled out for being different. The tension here is about our evolution. Are we going to make other people responsible for our emotional wounds, make them the bad guy, and need them to clean up our hurts? It's so easy to slip into a victim mentality with this particular combination. And really get into a place of assumptions, presumptions, foregone conclusions, and then reactions. When the truth is, we've taken a past pain and projected it onto our present circumstances. So watch out for this at this time. Under the influence of this full moon, it will be easy to mistake a fear for an intuition, given the Chiron and Pluto influence. Pluto is opposite of this full moon, speaking to the full moon, speaking to Mars. Chiron's also speaking to this full moon as well. This combination can have our worst fears actually manifesting as a reality, but it can also back us into a corner of looking at reality with a skewed lens. So, a good example I gave with Lee and Sherry last night on the live was we can get into this place of thinking, I know this person denied, ignored my phone call. They sent me to voicemail. They don't want to talk to me. I knew I was going to get blocked, that this is going to fall apart. When actually, what's going on the other side is the person may be stuck and stranded on the side of the road, waiting for roadside assistance with their vehicle that may have had a breakdown. Thank you, Uranus, in communication with this full moon, so that they can get home safely and their phone died, right? This sort of thing is the sort of thing we can see unfold with this full moon, where one person is going through a completely personal journey and the other person is taking someone's personal journey personally. If you can avoid that, do that. Suspend foregone conclusions, assume good intent of other people, have some grace for yourself and others. It'll go a long way at a full moon like this, so that you can stay in healthy connection and just ask with an open mind and open heart what happened instead of taking your past and projecting it on the future where somebody from the past may have blocked you. You get the idea. Okay. We also see, and because that Mars retrograde in Cancer, until that's done, everyone can be a little bit reactionary. So know that, okay? Especially opposite Pluto fear-based reactionariness is in the atmosphere for sure. We see this full moon has a trine to Neptune. As I mentioned, this can heighten our emotional responses toward things as well as our empathy with others. It's also easy to broadcast emotional signals, making you easy to read and amplify power to reset the emotional tone in a room or a group. A lot of my empath clients are always really concerned about being over inundated emotionally, but once you can find your emotional sovereignty, and there are a lot of tools and ways to do that, I won't get into that here, and your spiritual sovereignty, if you can receive signal just like a transmitter, you can also broadcast signal. And so you can really utilize a time like this to be the light in any situation that you walk into, utilizing Neptune in conjunction with this full moon. Like I said, the energy is active up to a week after, and then we start going into the next lunations beginning energy. So keep this in mind because up until about the 21st of January, you can utilize this for broadcasting signal. And especially those of you who are empaths, you can send signal out that can really help people at this time. Okay. It's also really great energy. Neptune speaking to this full moon by trine. It's a really great energy for imagination and creativity, really great for artists of any genre or format, especially if you want to use art mixed with emotions to manifest and create. Perfect time, build those vision boards. It's not too late. Create those artistic expressions about what you want to cultivate and manifest this year. The Saturn influence also helps immensely because while Neptune wants to call things in from the ether, Saturn wants to place them into the world of form. And so both of them speaking harmoniously to this full moon is giving us the opportunity to be really great manifestors and use the Saturnian energy for establishment in the third dimension. This is going to amplify intuition as well. It's going to be really helpful for those of you who are mediums, channels, psychics, readers of any sort. This is going to boost the accuracy in your readings if you are gifted in that way at this time. For those that are seeking readings at this time, I actually really am grateful that I have a few more appointments in my calendar this week. It's also going to boost the accuracy of the readings you receive at this time from any reader you go to. So it's a really ideal time to take advantage of that sort of energy, especially if you're trying to get in front of what your year ahead looks like. Okay. The loose trine to Saturn conjunct Nessus in Pisces. Let me highlight Nessus. We don't often talk about Nessus, but if you read any of the mythology there, you do see Nessus operates with a level of obsession that goes over the top. And so Nessus in connection with any planet that it's speaking to brings that obsession to the table. In this regard, Nessus is speaking to Saturn and has been for several months now. The Saturn Nessus connection is really holding our fingers to the fire on all things Saturnian: boundaries, structures, timing, releasing, actually severing routines, habits, patterns, and behaviors that undermine our ability to be whole so that we can have that back. It's a very maturing influence. Nessus here is amplifying Saturn's impact on our lives at a full moon like this. It can help establish a pattern or routine, break a pattern or routine that has been really hard to break. Really great time for anyone who's working on cutting back on any type of addictive behavior or substance. You can harness this energy to help you with that. Okay. Especially because Moon and Saturn and Nessus are both in water signs. If that habit pattern or routine has been an emotional crutch for you, this is a great time to get to the bottom of the driving emotions and their root, and then get to a place of being able to cut off that which isn't serving you and establish something new. Okay. We do see a loose opposition to Pluto here, to this full moon, and there is Pluto. This has been a driving and dynamic factor in the Mars retrograde, forcing us all to deal with things having Plutonian themes such as fear, shame, and rage. They give us the opportunity to experience our power in new ways. If we're willing to confront those deeper emotions, fear can be very empowering because it lets us know that we actually have more control over the situation than we're willing to exercise. The shame piece can actually help us understand more about our own moral code and help us either operate in a forgiveness process where somebody took advantage of us and we violated or they violated our moral code, or empower us through resetting our relationship to our moral code so we never cross that boundary for ourselves again. And then the rage part does let us know, hey, there was a boundary here and somebody crossed it. I need to step into a better place of managing that. With Mars retrograde, speaking to this full moon from water sign Cancer, emotions of that nature can run quite high. And so you want to be paying attention. What are your emotions telling you, especially with regard to anything having to do with the Plutonian themes? This is going to help you know where you can harness this Saturnian energy to cut ties with the established structure of life that may be cultivating or bringing those feelings to the surface so that you can live in a way that's more harmonious to who you really are. Okay. Um, because there is this Chiron influence as well, it's like Chiron and Pluto in the mix here. Um, we can see some manipulation, some control, and fear unfold at this full moon. In particular, fear of loss of connection, fear of rage or shame. And with the Chiron influence of the full moon, add to this not feeling good enough, either likely because of some of those darker, heavier, shadow, Plutonian emotions. Okay. Again, if you have people in your life who routinely disregard established boundaries because they cannot control their emotions, be watchful of where you put yourself to avoid detrimental encounters at this full moon. Okay. Um, in summary, for this full moon, fear and constriction are in the air, especially emotional reactivity, but it is a chance for us to see our patterns with some clarity and make changes that can move our lives forward. Difficult decisions can be made here that will propel us and our lives and our relationships to the next level. So utilize this full moon to follow emotions that do not feel amazing to their roots, their underlying thoughts, their beliefs, or the structure, so that you can find the structures that you're ready to change. It has to come up in order to come out. And if we can see it, we're already on the path to changing it. If you need any support with this, I do have space in my calendar on Wednesday. That's tomorrow and also Friday of this week. If my calendar times don't work for you, you can certainly check next week, but you can also send me your questions. Just book the time, send me your questions. You'll receive a recorded reading back. A lot of my long-standing clients have come to prefer those recorded readings because it's just me monologuing and they have more opportunity to kind of pick my brain with their questions and see all multiple different sides of an interpretations for their chart. Um, but if you're free, I'd love to chat. The link to book is below at kmoonastro.com. Let's take a look at the signs who are going to feel this full moon most. We are talking about Cancer, of course. Then we are also talking about the opposing sign, Capricorn, we are talking about Libra and Aries, all the cardinal signs, and Scorpio and Pisces, the trining water signs. So if you have sun, moon, or rising in any of those signs, know that this full moon may feel especially potent for you, especially if you are in the third decan of any of those signs. Okay, let's take a look elsewhere around the wheel. We have Mercury here. Let's talk about Mercury's influence. In Capricorn, it is conjunct Pholus. At that ninth degree, we see a sextile to Vesta, conjunct Haumea there in Scorpio. We also see a sextile to Venus, conjunct Saturn there inside of, and Nessus inside of Pisces. With all of this, the fullest piece, there could be some negative or toxic thinking or speaking about the structures of your life. Work-related prospects, job opportunities, feeling tied to something toxic in the work world, even if it's just inescapable negative self-talk. For some of you, this is going to be a toxic work environment or colleagues. For others, this can be a structure in your life that you're struggling to rid yourself of. It could be anything here, an underwater house mortgage or other debt or a habit that you know isn't working for you, an interpersonal dynamic that undermines your ability to be productive. Keep a lookout for what this is. Saturn in trine to this configuration is trying to illuminate it. Nessus is doubling down on the discomfort so that you can be empowered to cut it off at this time. Okay. The sextile to Vesta conjunct Haumea in Scorpio here. This is about finding ways to deal with the above by either committing to getting a new job, new career path, new structure for your life, or applying creative solutions for a new outcome. The sextile from Venus, Saturn, and Nessus up there. This combo, when Saturn and Venus are talking specifically, there are very sobering effects for love and money. Some people may even feel very financially constricted, which can happen post-holiday season, but collectively, I do suspect everyone may be feeling some of that now. When Nessus is involved, there's a near obsession with whatever planet is Nessus is talking to. Like I said, in this case, it's Saturn. And that's giving us an internal conviction that in one area of life, we have to get into alignment, wholeness, integrity. And because Venus is involved, there's an internal pressure that we need to get into alignment in areas concerning love and money. So this is about putting an end to habits and patterns that undermine where we want to be. This full moon will put the internal pressure on us to make moves to at least separate from or end the things that will not get us there. Okay. Let's talk more specifically about that Venus in Pisces here. Venus in Pisces, it's an unconditional love placement. Many people can be feeling quite agape right now. Some people may even be feeling lovelorn or love's loss at this time with Venus moving through water sign Pisces. Never fear, she resurrects in Aries and passion returns once again. Venus in conjunction with Saturn, again, and Nessus, again with the theme of coming into financial and romantic alignment through severing things that undermine our own integrity. We have the square to Jupiter retrograde in Gemini here. This also helps us expand through creative ideas, experimentation, exploration, curiosity about possibilities, ideation that's grounded, thank you, Saturn, in the areas of love and money. So expansion is here, but it's not out of control. It's tempered, it's managed, it's grounded, and I love to see that. We also see a sextile to the Mercury Pholus Palace in Capricorn that I was just talking about over here. It's a great opportunity to have productive conversations about challenging issues and get to the root of the matter. This is also a great opportunity, especially if you are a boss or a supervisor in your workplace and you're noticing toxic behavior from your direct reports among one another. It's a great time to confront it and put an end to it as we start the new year to make the workplace a safer environment for everyone who works for you. And if you happen to be the person under stress that's making your workplace toxic, this is a great time to look at where that's coming from, that it's getting projected outwardly so that you can deal with the root of it and make yourself a safer environment internally. With fullness in the mix, there could be some harsh words directed at self or others before solutions come out. There could also be information deliberately withheld or deliberately misshared about the structure of the situation, making it difficult to get things in order. So if you're the one guiding the conversation or initiating, know that transparency, even if uncomfortable at first, can help move things along positively in the long term. And if you're on the receiving end of a conversation, specifically a renegotiation of any sort of contract, make sure you're reading between the lines, asking the uncomfortable questions, reading the fine print. Okay. If you need any support figuring out how to navigate challenging situations in real time, like I said, I'm available this week. The link to book at caymanastro.com is below this video. Let's talk about this Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. Jupiter retrograde is trine Make, our shaman's asteroid in Libra, and Ceres and Chariklo there in Aquarius. This constitutes what we as astrologers consider a grand air trine, because there's occupation in the same degrees of all three air signs. It's what makes it, quote, grand. And so this will make us contemplative about what we've learned and what we need to do differently based on what we've learned. Okay. And for all of us in at least one area of life, there is this sort of culling of lessons so that we can have different experiences. I love saying this. It's one of my favorite slogans. If you want something new, you got to do something new. You got to be something new. To get us something we've never had, we have to be willing to become something we've never been. And this full moon is really illuminating where that change in us needs to take place. Chariklo right here is saying the minute you change it, I'll bless it. Ceres right here is saying once you end it, I will coalesce community around you to support it. Okay. We also see for Jupiter a sextile to Chiron in Aries up here, conjunct Eris. This places us in the light side of Chiron and Jupiter, the educator, healer, leader, teacher, and guide energy. You may find that you're called upon as a leader for others, given what you've had to learn the hard way for people facing what you've already grown through. And so if there are people who are tapping you for advice, wisdom, and guidance at this time, it is because there is something you do have to offer. So trust yourself, trust it. Obviously, they'll have to trust their own lives, but you can certainly share your own experience. And lastly, for Jupiter, also in the mix with this Nessus and Saturn and Venus in a square. So much fun. We've covered this, but this is expansion through creative ideas and a commitment to making things right for ourselves and others in the areas of love and money. These are the major influences for this full moon. I've tried to cover it quickly. Feel free to listen as many times as you need. Once again, in conclusion, we have Uranus, we have Pluto, we have Neptune doing the most to shake up and change our lives from the ground up and the inside out. I've talked about them extensively in 2024. I won't go much in depth here, only to say Uranus is wake ups, shake ups, evolutions, and quantum leaps. Neptune washes away that which we are done with, and Pluto forces us to pick up our power by confronting that which makes us afraid, ashamed, or enraged. By doing these three things, we are entering into a very new era in our lives as each of these planets enters a new sign this year. It's rare for them to all change at once, including Saturn. These outer planets are the game changers in our lives. Mercury may change the weather within a season, but it's Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus that change actual seasons. And so our lives will be going through a major shift this year, since all four of them will be in a brand new sign together by the time we get to June, July. So expect things to be looking very differently than they have looked for the last decade collectively, in the last 2 years, even more specifically. But that's going to be a good thing. It's meant to elevate us. But in order to get something we've never had, we have to be willing to do things we've never done. With that said, if you could use some support figuring out the next steps when it comes to course corrections that you need to make this year, now's a great time to book a read. I have 1 hour and 30 minute slots available if you'd like to get a jump on the Venus and Juno retrograde energies and what they mean for you personally in love, work, and money. Let's talk. Find me over at kmoonastro.com. Link is below this video. Take great care and bye for now.